Now we're into the top 10 of 2013. So these are the big ones. These are the, top of the tree. And at number 10, we have my favourite thrash metal album for 2013, Skull by Evil. What a thrash metal album this is, from the British thrash metal band. I'd never heard of Evil before, no idea. But this album, Skull, it reminds me almost of like And Justice for All type Metallica, but if it had bass. And boy, does this album just kick. You have songs like Tomb, which is another of my favourite songs there. I love Tomb with this sort of delight. Definitely reminds me of One a bit. But again, while I'm making all these references to Metallica, these are not just a mere Metallica clone band, and to say that would just be awful. You can't just write these off as, oh, they're a Metallica clone. They're not. They really have something interesting, something fresh. They have a big emphasis on, choruses and stuff, but fantastic riffs. I just love the riffs on this album. Some of the best thrash riffs of the year, in my opinion. Their guitarist, who sadly left now, so who knows what's going to happen to Evil now that the guitarist has left, but fantastic riffs. Yeah, I really love this album. I definitely think any metal fan needs to hear this album. And at number 9, how could they not be in this list? How could they not? They were in my first ever year-end list, in my top 5 albums of 2011 list back in 2011 on New Year's Eve when I posted it, and they just have to be back. Well, I'm not sure this is as good as their 2011 effort, The World Is Yours. Motorhead's Aftershock has to be in here. I'm a huge Motorhead fan. They're one of my absolute favourite metal bands of all time, if not a second or third favourite ever. I love pretty much everything they've done. Well, there's some stuff I'm not as keen on. The Sacrifice album, yeah. But in general, solid band. I've been loving World Is Yours so much. It's probably my second favourite Motorhead album, only to No Sleep Till Hammersmith. Honestly, I think it's their best studio effort, and that's not a joke, seriously. With songs like Get Back in Line, Brotherhood of Men, oh god, it's just that album, oh my god, wonderful. And what Aftershock isn't quite as good, I think Aftershock takes an interesting approach. It's slightly bluesier, maybe slightly softer at times. You have something like Lost Woman Blues, which quite unexpected, really quite a slow blues song. And then you have Dust and Glass, which is a bit of a bluesier song as well. But then you still have those hard rockers, you still have those big metal songs, you still have Heartbreaker, you still have Knife, Queens of the Damned, and they're just big, catchy metal songs that straight, balls to the wall, Motorhead style, no frills, no bits of keyboard here, no swelling orchestra here. It's just 3-piece metal with huge bass to the forefront and Lemmy's growling, gravelly voice at the forefront. You just can't go wrong with Motorhead, and Motorhead can't go wrong. They're one of the most consistent bands, I would say, in the history of metal, and Aftershock just brought a big smile to my face when I listened to it, because it's just Motorhead. I'm just so pleased that Motorhead is still going and they're still doing their thing. And of course I hope Lemmy's health gets a bit better in 2014. As 2013 has been quite a worrying year for Motorhead fans. I'd hate to lose Lemmy, and especially when they're producing music this damn good. So I'm just enjoying them for as long as they go on. At number 8, a band I saw live supporting Black Sabbath, we have Mind Control by Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats. Oh my god, this doom metal album definitely, well, it's number 8, of course it's one of the highlights of the year, but this is also one of the surprises of the year. I had never ever heard of Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats before, no idea who they were, who K-Star was, and mainly I discovered them, well, I sort of heard a bit about them. I listened to once, I think I listened to Poison Apple, and then, I don't know, I just completely forgot about them really. Then it was, I think in Manchester Record Exchange, I had them, I was just in the shop, browsing. I had, this album on, and it was like, what the hell is this? This is so bloody good. It's just like, oh, this song's good. This song's amazing. It got better and better. And I had a look, and they had what we're playing, and it was this. Mind Control by Uncle Acid and Deadbeats. And then I thought, oh yeah, damn, they're the band supporting Black Sabbath as well. Well, I could go and see them. So why not pick up the album? So I did, just picked it up on a whim, and wow, that was certainly not a mistake picking up that album. Damn, that was not a mistake. Because what I found was probably one of the best doom metal releases I've heard for a while. I mean, I love this current sort of whole doom metal, almost, you know, doom metal comeback. I've been loving a lot of these modern doom metal, but at times they can feel a bit too like, let's copy Black Sabbath. But what this does, they almost blend sort of Summer of Love, 67 psychedelia with classic 70s Sabbath doom metal. It's like Paranoid meets 13th Floor Elevators, and SF Sorrow meets, you know, bloody Master of Reality. It's such an interesting album. His vocal style, K-Stars, or as he used to be called, Uncle Acid, quite low in the mix, I'd say, and just have this really sort of ethereal, creepy tone to him. Very engaging, but yeah, at times I just love the riffs on this. I think they're some of the best doom metal riffs of the year. Not the best doom metal riffs, I think you know who that award's going to go to, but certainly up there. Songs like Poison Apple, Mindcrawler, just out of this world. I just love them so much. At number 7, we have Feast of Consequence by Fish. This was, of course, going to be on here. I'm a big Fish era Marillion fan. I quite like the Hogarth stuff, but not half as much as Fish. I mean, Misplaced Childhood, Clutching at Straws, Script for a Jester, fantastic, 3 fantastic albums. Fugazi, it's decent. And I like Fish's solo career. It was like, I think, Vigil in the Wilderness is, well, very good. Great continuation from Clutching at Straws, really. And I really loved 13th Star, Fish's last album in, what, 2009, 8, 7, 6? I don't know, it was a while ago, Fish's last solo album. Focused on him being jilted by the mostly Autumn singer, Heather Finlay. And yeah, that was a bitter, almost, it was like electronic elements album, and it's really interesting, actually. But here we're looking at Feast of Consequence. And the centre of this album, the beating heart, is the Highwood Suite. The Highwood Suite is a 4-5 part suite. I can't quite remember. It's been a while since I've heard this album, honestly. And yeah, it's a suite focused on World War I, and just sort of a soldier's experiences, and, you know, some of the grimness of World War I, and also just like, you know, it's a really poetic thing, because Fish is a fantastic lyricist. I think he's one of the best lyricists out there, and the very poet, because his great-grandfather, I think, served in World War I, and something like that. But the rest of the album, songs like Blind to the Beautiful, a title track, so they don't follow the concept as much, so it's just, you know, more of a suite. But it's certainly the main focal point of the album. But the other songs, very strong Fish. I mean, Blind to the Beautiful is one of the best ballads he's done for a long time, and then Feast of Consequence as well, another very catchy song. This really just shows Fish to be on top form. It's a great continuation, not as electronic as 13th Star, which is nice, as much as I maybe slightly prefer 13th Star to this album. But this album is certainly no slouch. I mean, there's a couple of weaker tracks maybe towards the end, but in general, it's an extremely, I mean, it's number 7, of course it's an extremely strong bloody album, and one of the most interesting releases of 2013, and one of my most anticipated as well, so of course it has to be this high. Number 6. The Raven That Refused to Sing by Steven Wilson. This is my number 1 prog rock album of 2030, and to great surprise, because I've often been kind of harsh to Steven Wilson. I have. I've often considered him one of the most overrated artists in prog. I wouldn't have thought at the beginning of the year a new Steven Wilson album would get in my top 10. No, in fact, I didn't even listen to this album when it came out. I listened to Luminol, and I like that, but I just never quite got around to it. I sort of planned to listen to it, but it was never too high on my list, because, I don't know, I just didn't think, I thought Steven Wilson was okay, but I thought he looked back to the past a bit too much and never quite added anything that new. But what I found was that I was completely and utterly wrong. Firstly, I started getting into Porcupine Tree with In Absentia, And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to listen to this album, and it just blew me away. It was just like, this album could climb a bit higher on my list. I'm not sure it would get #1. No, I wouldn't. But it certainly could climb higher. You know, I could be saying 6 months' time, maybe this is my second or third favourite album of 2013. But I haven't listened to it quite enough times. I listened to it about 3 times. It's one of those more listens, it gets better, I would imagine. But Drive Home, the softer, sort of ballady song, that song, wow. Luminol, just the prog epic masterpiece of the year, and then you have The Raven That Refused to Sing, the title track. It's just lovely, well, you know, it's almost concepty in the way that it tells little stories, but you know, it doesn't have one narrative. But I like the way it tells little stories. Each song has its own little story. It's The Raven That Refused to Sing and other stories. And I like that about the album. I think Steven Wilson's voice is great. The instrumentation and technicality is just top notch. I mean, you can't really fault it. The songwriting's so strong. It was a surprise for me because I wouldn't consider myself a Steve Wilson fan, but I think now I may start to, and I definitely want to look into more Porcupine Tree, Fear of a Blank Planet, and also more Steven Wilson solo stuff, Grace for Drowning as well. I'd like to check out. So yeah, this could be the start of a thing with Steven Wilson, which definitely, as I said, still surprises me. But this album, yeah, oh so wonderful. #5. How could it not be in the top 5? How could it not? It's the Return, the comeback album of the year. Now you may be thinking, hold on, I thought I'll explain later, but this is to me the comeback album of the year. I didn't expect this. I didn't see this coming in a million years. On my, when I was looking, forward to 2013, I didn't see this coming. I didn't ever think we'd see this release, let alone 2013, and let alone that it'd be so bloody good. This, of course, this is the not perfect, but the bookends to one of the greatest musical artists, David Bowie's And the Next Day. When Where Are We Now dropped in early January, I was honestly kind of shocked. I heard about it on the radio. I remember going to school, and it was like a new Bowie single. Oh my god, I had called Where Are We Now, and it's like, oh my god, I can't wait to hear this. As soon as I got home, listened to it on YouTube, and I was a bit nervous. It was like, I'm not a huge fan of Reality. His 2001 album was that? God, long time ago. Yeah, I think it's okay. It's quite hit or miss, really. But Where Are We Now, that just hit immediately. I think I listened to like 10 times just in a row. Just spent half an hour just like listening to that one track over and over again. The interesting, weird music video of the puppet things, and it was just a captivating song. It really was. It was this beautiful, beautiful slow ballad that it built and built to this wonderful, not only quite a subtle crescendo, but yet such a beautiful one. It really did. And I thought the lyrics, it was just so poetic looking back at his time in Berlin. Though interesting, look back with quite a nice glow, because his time in Berlin was a bit full of, sort of cocaine and milk, to say the least. But yeah, it's such a great song. And then of course The Stars Are Out Tonight dropped. That was a lot more rocky, a lot more up-tempo, harkening back to the 70s stuff. Finally, we have something that sounds worthy of Aladdin Sane and Ziggy and that type of stuff. And when the album dropped, some people criticised, saying, oh, Bowie's looking back, and some of these songs, they copy bits of what he did in the past. And it's like, look, if anyone is allowed to take huge influence from Bowie's past catalogue, it's Bowie. He has a right to, reinvent some of his tracks. But the thing is, it doesn't feel like, he's just making an album that, he sounds exactly like Ziggy or something. It's a very different album to that. And so interesting in its ways. Yes, it does have its slightly weaker moments. There's almost, I can't remember the name of it, but there's an almost disco song in there. It's just like, okay, maybe not that side of the 70s. We want to be one in more early 70s than late 70s. But I think it's definitely his best album since Scary Monsters and Super Creeps. What, in 1980 that album was? 79, 80, something like that. It was just a phenomenal comeback, and then you have things like Set the World on Fire. I was just surprised at how rocky this was. This was just Bowie back with big rock, well not big, but just hard rocking, also beautiful ballads, even some psychedelic things at times. This just encapsulated the best parts of Bowie's career. No bits of Let's Dance specifically, though you did get a bit of that, as I said, on the more disco track, but in general it just encapsulated Bowie's career. It's the perfect bookend, really, to his career. It's a far better end than Reality ever was, and I'm just so, so happy with it. Number 4, though. What could top Bowie? Well, it's a new band. Well, to me, a new band to me. Pelagio by the Ocean. This has to be the most interesting album of 2013 to me. If you don't know who the Ocean are, they're sort of a post-metal, progressive metal band. And yes, harsh vocal alert, they do have some harsher vocals, but there's also a lot of cleans in here as well, so I wouldn't be scared. And also, there is an instrumental half of this, but I'll talk a little bit about this album. So, The Ocean's Pelagio basically is a concept album, and it's one of the most interesting, unique concepts I've ever heard. It's simply going through the ocean, starting near the top, and then going deep to the bottom. And that doesn't sound like, you know, the most interesting, doesn't sound as engaging necessarily on the surface as something like, I don't know, you know, Operation Mindcrime or The Wall, etc. But yet it is. It's just such a captivating journey. It really is. And it's embodied by the use of instrumentation and music on here. The way that it starts lightest out at the top of the ocean, and as they get further, deeper into the ocean, it gets heavier and heavier, until at the end it's just crushing. It's just crushingly heavy. But the balance of these beautiful, emotion-filled, serene moments with the brutality of when they get to the bottom of the ocean, it's just mesmerising. It's just a journey. You have to listen to it in one go. And if you don't like, because there are some harsher vocals on here, then you know what, there's still no excuse not to listen to it, because when they released it, they released one disc with the album with vocals, one disc as purely instrumental. So if you don't like the idea of harsher vocals, you're a bit sceptical about that, then listen to the instrumental version of this. There is no excuse to not listen to this album that you can give me. There really isn't. It was originally intended to be an instrumental album, actually, because the vocalist, his voice wasn't doing too well, but then it got a bit better. So I know a lot of people prefer the instrumental version. I personally prefer the vocal version. I think it's a bit stronger, but I tend to in that type of thing. The instrumental version is still amazing, I mean, it really is. But I say the vocal version is superior, in my opinion. But, yeah, there's no excuse not to listen to this album. But seriously, as soon as you finish watching this video, just do. And don't listen to, like, one track on YouTube, necessarily. That's what I did when I first heard about the album, then I never really listened to it until later this year. About 6 months later, because I was like, you have to listen to this as one concept. And then it'll just open itself up to you. And when it does, it's a true journey to behold. Number 3. An album's got some mixed reception, but I'm clearly on the side that loves it. Dream Theater's self-titled album, Dream Theater. Dream Theater always going to be high on my list. I'm a huge Dream Theater fan. I really am. They're my second favourite metal band of all time. Probably second to, like, Iron Maiden. I just love their stuff so much. And even though Mike Portnoy, my favourite drummer of all time, of course, left long ago now. And I have never been quite that impressed with Mike Mangini, honestly. I thought on the Back of Angels, it wasn't fair to judge him because those parts were like programmed by John Petrucci, and then Mike Mangini just copied them. And live, I thought his drum solo was one of the most boring I've ever heard in my entire life. I pretty much hated it. And I've seen some pretty bad drum solos, but this has to honestly top them all. And bear in mind, when I was a lot younger, I saw the Nickelback drummer do a drum solo. And Mike Mangini's was probably more boring. Yeah, but here, Mike Mangini really redeems himself in my eyes. Yes, I still think he's a bit too overly technical and a bit too almost robotic at times, but he definitely shows himself here with some monster fills, really drives the sound. But let's just talk about the album as well. I mean, I have done a full review on this, but this album to me, yes, at times it does have slightly more of a commercial side, which some people said, oh, this album's overly commercial. I would have to disagree, really. I mean, this has Illumination for, which is a 20-minute epic, the best song Dream Theater have done, I don't know, probably since Systematic Chaos, probably maybe since Forsaken. I love Forsaken. That's like the song I discovered them on, you see. Probably since then. I mean, it's such an amazing song, Illumination. Then you have the Limelight sounding song, like into glass, something like that. And I just think it's a really varied, mixed interest. I always found that A Dramatic Turn of Events was a bit too same-notey, a bit too grey sounding. It was good, solid album, I enjoyed it a lot, it's in my top 5 2011, but I didn't find it did anything hugely interesting. This album, it's just so varied. You have the heavy, almost train of thought-like songs, then you have the super commercial, really keyboardy, catchy 3-minute pop songs almost, and then you have the 20-minute epics, you have a 6-minute instrumental, you have lyrics from John Myung. It's just everything I wanted. What I wanted from this album, I wanted an instrumental and an epic. I got that, and much more. This album didn't disappoint, and it's just amazing. Number 2. I said David Bowie's The Next Day was my favourite comeback album of the year, because I don't really count this as a comeback, honestly. In a way it is, in a way it isn't. But it doesn't matter what it is or what it isn't, because it's still number 2. 13 by Black Sabbath. The return of Ozzy Sabbath, though I still maintain, in my opinion, all you need for a Sabbath album is Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler. They're the essential components of a Sabbath album. And 2009's The Heaven and Hell release, The Devil You Know, certainly had Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler, and also Dio and Vinnie Appice, all 4 of them who had been in Black Sabbath. It's just for copyright reasons and Ozzy that they couldn't use the name Black Sabbath. Really, so I'd say the last album was only 4 years ago, but for Ozzy Sabbath, of course this is a return. It's their first album since 1970, it's Never Say Die, which, not a great album, honestly. But this, oh, this is a bloody damn great album. This is what I wanted from old school Black Sabbath. I was nervous about this album, I really was. No Brad Wilt yet. No Bill Ward. Instead, we had Brad Wilt, the Rage Against the Machine, audio slave drummer, filling in on sticks. And yes, he's not as good as Brad Wilt, doesn't quite have that jazzy fusion edge to him, but still, good performance. Really here, it's Tony Iommi. This is Tony Iommi's show. He just shows that he's the same riff master that he was in the 70s, and that he could just write riffs for all bloody eternity and they'd still sound just as great. The riffs on God Is Dead, the end of the beginning, Loner, they're just as good as anything. They're as good as any riff he's written. And when I saw them live, they fitted in perfectly. Those 3 songs are the ones I saw live. They fitted in perfectly with the old stuff with the War Pigs and Paranoids and Iron Mans and Children of the Graves, etc., etc., Into the Voids. But, yeah, and Ozzy's voice, surprisingly good. Surprisingly good. Yes, there's a bit of reverb on there, and yes, he had to probably take a million takes to do each song, but it was good. It was good. Some people say he used auto-tune. I'm pretty sure he didn't, honestly. I mean, he has said he didn't, but I certainly couldn't hear any auto-tune. A lot of reverb, definitely. Bit of effects on his vocals, but no auto-tune. No, I think that's harsh to say that, and I don't think it's true, honestly. But still, this album, it's just classic Sabbath. And some people said it's too classic. It's too retro. It's too looking in the past. Like Bowie's The Next Day, people said, this, he doesn't do anything new. And it's like, what the bloody hell did you expect from a new Black Sabbath album? Did you expect them to be reinventing the wheel? Did you expect them to be pioneering? You know, they're not spring chickens. You know, leave the pioneering to the new generation of musicians. I'm happy with that. These old guys, I just wanted them to deliver something strong, something that's fun to listen to, something that's replayable, and that's what they did here. And that's what I think they set out to do. They didn't set out to completely revolutionise doom metal, revolutionise metal with this album. No. They just came to bookend their career and say, Black Sabbath, it's been a bit ropey over the years. You know, we started strong, but then we had all the different singers, and well, some I think exceeded. Dio, Heaven and Hell's my favourite Sabbath album. And then we had some of the, you know, dodgier albums and almost rap-like albums and weird stuff, and then Heaven and Hell, so just so many things. It's just, this bookends it. This is the perfect, almost perfect end to one of metal's greatest bands. And to me, that doesn't disappoint. They set out and achieved what they wished to achieve. And to me, if an album does that, that's what makes it truly great. And this album is truly great. Number 1. What could beat 13 by Black Sabbath? What could beat Dream Theater subtitled and Ocean's Pelagio? Bowie's The Next Day and Stephen Wilson's The Raven, Fisher's Feast, Uncle Acid's Mind Control, Motorhead's Aftershock, Eval's Skull, and all of the rest? What could beat those albums? What could stand above the rest? Well, of course, it is Fortress by Alter Bridge. Fortress, wow. I was expecting this to be good. I like Alter Bridge. To me, Blackbird is still their pinnacle. And bear in mind, this is, in my opinion, still only their second best album, and it's still topping UN lists. If you look at my previous winners in the Hall of Fame, 2011 winners, Blackstone Cherries Between the Devil and Deep Blue Sea, their best album. 2012's winners, Anathema's Weather Systems album, their best album. But here, this is only their second best, and it's still the best album of 2013. Wow, this is everything I wanted from an Alter Bridge album. It truly is. There isn't really a bad song on here. All Ends Well is probably the slightly weakest, but still, on any other album, that would be one of the highlights. But here, I thought AB3 was a strong album. One Day Remains is a decent debut. Blackbird is truly spectacular, and this album is heavier. It's definitely heavier than we've seen. This is the heaviest Alter Bridge I've ever been. Maybe not as dark as AB3, but it's heavier. It's more dynamic, it's even progressive at times. Again, not progressive in the sense of progressive rock, but progressive in the sense that the band really evolves on this album. This is an evolution of their sound. Instead of, if you look on like an album like One Day Remains, it's catchy, hard rock songs, bit of an alternative metal feel to them, nice riffs, nice choruses, no more. Here, they really expand that formula. Instead of just becoming a band that's just locked into one formula, churning out album after album, here, they really experiment a bit. I'm not saying this is the most experimental release of the year, of course I'm bloody not, okay? You know, Alter Bridge should not suddenly become King Crimson, but this is certainly, for them, more of an experimental album. They just visit some really interesting things. They break up what can be a monotonous alternative metal formula by just having some lighter parts where you wouldn't necessarily expect it, some beautiful guitar solos. You have the dueling guitar solos at the title track Fortress. You have, just everything is so interesting. Every song to me sticks out from one another. You have Addicted to Pain and Cry of Achilles. I mean, what songs they are to open an album. Huge, giant riffs from Miles and Mark, which are just almost unparalleled. This is arena rock, arena metal at its pinnacle, at its best. It's the epitome of that type of thing. Miles' voice, they just have a confidence here. They just have a confidence that I don't think they've ever quite had before. And, yeah, that's why Alter Bridge's Fortress is my number one, and I also realised that this album, this video is now 40 minutes long. Yeah. So I think I'm going to end it here, if you even survived to here, and well done if you did. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully 2014 will hold many, many more releases. We'll be able to do another top 50, hope so. So yes, this has been TheAIbumMan. Thanks for watching, comment, rate, subscribe, and as usual, long live good old rock and bloody roll.